global event. Now, I'm very excited about our next speaker. She is coming from VMware to share just that big component that we talked about that is so critical for successful transformations, culture, and building an inclusive culture. Nicole Scheffler is going to be with us. I want to let everybody know that Nicole is going to be on audio only, so you're not going to see her camera. It's not a niche, it's not a defect on your broadcast. It's just that she was not able to get her camera working for this session, but she is going to go through an audio presentation and with the slides at the same time. So just so that you know that is normal, there is nothing wrong with the broadcast. Now, Nicole is a tech diva for almost 20 years professionally as a programmer and engineer. By day, she leads an enterprise engineering team for VMware with her head in the clouds. And at night, she puts on her cape to help spark success for super women in technology with her Tech Diva Success Collection. She has 2 best-selling books, one of those with Jack Canfield, 2 podcasts for women in tech, and it speaks frequently on both technology topics and diversity. I am thrilled to have you with us, Nicole. It's a great privilege to have you, and looking forward for you to share your insights with our global audience today.
Thank you so much, Jose, and I really appreciate this platform. The nerdy futurist in me would be very excited to be telling everybody about multi-cloud and strategies of going to the cloud, and there's lots of great content on that today. However, I'm going to divert from my technology futurist cap to talk about something much more important that will unlock innovation, and that is building an inclusive culture. So I'm really grateful for everyone sticking around. This is going to be a wonderful session. I'm honored to be a part of the event today. This is the first step to progress. Being here and being in the moment and listening to this session, I guarantee you I have crafted something that you will walk away with learning. It's data packed, data driven, and it's going to help you improve your performance. If you're having diverse teams, we can improve your performance. If you're a leader, or really for anyone on this call, anyone out there who's looking to grow a more inclusive culture. So please use the chat. I will keep a look at that. I know that I'm not on video. I miss seeing all of you. Luckily, I have a YouTube channel, and I would be happy to engage more with you. So please give me a follow. I am on Twitter, as you can see, tech_Nicole or technical. And of course, the hashtag for the event is hashtag BTOE strategies. So would love if you want to drop any nuggets there. And like you said, I am a tech diva with a mission to spark success in others by leading and serving. And I've done a lot of work clearly for women in tech, and I've been involved with the global board of women of Cisco in my previous employer, and now I'm highly involved with the Women Pod, the People of Difference organization within VMware. So what I'm going to do is going to expand beyond just gender today, because there's many fundamental steps that we can take to be advocates for full spectrum diversity at and within our organizations. All right, so let's dig in. If everyone's excited, please feel free again to use the chat. I will be watching that. And the engineer in me is going to start by looking at data. So we're going to look at how diverse teams drive real value. And then I'm going to share my own 4-step success framework learned from my mentor, Jack Canfield, that's going to help you guide not only your personal success, but help you build a truly inclusive team culture and mindset. You're going to leave this today with 5 or many more, but at least 5 best practices that you can take action on immediately to be a diversity champion. So again, very happy to be here. But the alarms are going off in corporate America. COVID-19 and the pandemic has disproportionately impacted women, including that of my own. I lost my own job from my previous employer during the pandemic. And before, women were holding just a little more jobs than men for the first time since 2010. So I wanted to point out that a year later, the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that women have lost 1 million more jobs than men during the pandemic. This is a problem. We were already struggling with gender equity alone prior to the pandemic, but the stress of work-life balance and kids being back home and school being canceled and caring for people in our family was too much. And we have a lot of work to do. Even though we make up only 39% of employment, we account for over 54% of overall job losses. So that's why my topic is always important around diversity, which includes more than just gender. But this makes it absolutely critical that we take a look at women because they have been more displaced than ever before. In fact, there was an interesting study. This is a 2021 study here at the bottom referenced on the tech workplace for women in the pandemic. And this shows that women that are a higher rate of being burnt out is those that have male bosses. So I assume many of you, majority, I would guess, from my studies are men on this call. And that's why this is even more important for you, because we want to keep everyone in tech and everyone happy. But why? Because there's data behind all of this where we have to start with the why. In my book, I go into this into detail. I'll share the link at my end of my presentation so that you can read into it. But after so many years of being in the industry and speaking on this topic, I wanted to be able to show the benefits of these diverse teams, right? So let's take a look. Here we're looking at several great benefits, 3 main benefits, in fact, that are wonderful about diversity. Now, the first is that team diversity boosts productivity and profitability. And to back this up, I did a study of 22,000 companies, and 91 of those companies were used for this case. All right, so let's take a look again at these 3. Let's start with the attracting top talent. 78%, okay, so over 3/4 American adults consider gender diversity in the workplace important. So Catalyst is a very popular research platform, especially for these types of issues. And they show that when one company feels fair and inclusive, women and underrepresented groups are happier and more likely to thrive. So moving towards equal gender representation alone will reduce things like workplace harassment and just allow the culture to feel better. So attracting top talent is one of the biggest benefits of really having a diverse work culture. People talk, bad stories get out there. We all know about some of the websites out there where you can rate your employers, and these are the types of things that people are talking about. So although today I want to expand beyond just this gender and give you these fundamental steps of being a full spectrum diversity advocate, I believe that just women and underrepresented groups alone are key. So in a 2016 study, 2/3 of people, employees, felt that just respectful treatment of all employees was an important factor. So let's take everything else off the table and just say, let's just have respect as a foundation. And all employees believe that the more psychologically safe they feel at work, the more likely they are to feel included. So psychological safety is very key to attracting this top talent, and that they feel safe to kind of come as they are, be who they are. And these are just some of the benefits that allow you to attract top talent. Now, we can also make more money. This is the study that I talked about, right? The 22,000 companies. And it shows that if you have 30% women in leadership, there's a 6% greater net profit margin. Now, give or take some points here, it just basically pays to have women in tech. Some older data can correlate higher stock values and profitability, and that's really the problem. It's really hard to pin a nail on exactly a data point for something intangible like psychological safety. But thankfully, to the rise of social justice over the last year, more conversations around equality, diversity, this has been more important than ever before. So that's a very exciting time for us. In addition, diversity could improve global output by 1/4 This is for some companies like Norway that require gender diversity, and in general, mixed gender boards outperform all male boards. So you can see here that we want to get more money and we want to get more profitability. But let's go to my favorite, innovation, right? Because all of the things we're talking about at the summit today have to do with innovation, whether you're building out your multi-cloud strategy or you're figuring out how to run modern apps on-prem and off-prem, whatever it may be for you. And diverse teams drive deeper customer engagement. They drive better development. In fact, I was reading one study that said if there's AI, as we develop AI, if there aren't enough women behind driving the AI, the actual intelligence itself will be biased by the nature of how it was designed. Really, really crazy study. So in this case, teams are 158% more likely to understand the customer when they have one trait in common with their customer's race, gender, age, sex, or culture. So the earlier study even shows that diversity in management earned 38% more revenue from those with innovative products and services in the last 3 years. So managing diverse teams also matters. So as you can see here, here's 3 strong reasons why diversity is so important. And unlocking innovation can be done hand in hand with the following few lists of things, right? Ensuring everyone is heard, making a safe place to share ideas, giving your team members authority, the credit when it's due, the feedback when they need it, and in general, that will allow you to maximize their innovation potential so that we can really get to where we need to go. Now, although we see all these great benefits, this idea of full spectrum diversity, and let me define that for some of you that may be new to this term. It's really recognizing that we are different from each other in more ways than just our ethnicity or our gender. That we can build bridges with these traditional diversity concepts like women in tech, but widen acceptance. You're hearing about neurodiversity, which is so great to take in the different things we can't see that are going on inside. Our geographic diversity. In fact, there's 2 types of diversity. If you want to learn a fun fact today, it's inherent diversity. Those are things that you're born with, and acquired diversity. Those are things that you gain from working abroad, selling to diverse genders, your life experiences. And the combination of those in the diversity world is often called 2D diversity. And when you have 2-dimensional diversity, you can outperform others and do that innovation unlocking. But unfortunately, when we pulled McKinsey, now at the time in 2012, say, the number of companies that were actually committed to gender diversity was 56%, 2012. We're good that we're at 87% of companies say it's important. C-suite diversity has increased 24% from 2015 to 2019. But take a look at this. Look at the story I'm telling y'all. The gender and racial diversity was rated as a 67 to 70% top priority by senior leaders. Okay, we're getting it. So are you taking action? 45% to 47 are taking action. But when we go down to the managers themselves, only 13 to 19% of the actual managers are taking action. So there's a problem there at the ground level that people don't know what to do or how to do it. That's what we're going to hit in the second half of the presentation. But I would be doing a disservice to you if I didn't give you some real meat behind why this is so important to innovation, as we are all futurists and innovators on this call looking to build the next generation of transformation from you. And also building pipeline. In my studies, I found that the broken rung of diversity is really that first level manager. So 26%, we know that it's only 1/4 of women in computing, and the turnover rate is high. So it really comes down to doing more than just checking the box. We can't just say it's important. We have to take responsibility for it. So let's get into how we drive that success during the second half here of the presentation. I have a 4-step success framework. This is when it's going to get good. These are really the things that are going to change you, y'all. So not only is it going to change you, and you can apply all of these to your life, your personal life. I use it as a parent all the time, as a wife, as a friend, in my own career. But in diversity and in building these cultures, I'm going to show you how these things work. So the first is that we all have to take responsibility for leading our teams with this cultural values, for embracing these values that make people feel like the environment is fair and inclusive. And in order to do that, there's a formula. I also feel like this is a little bit of the secret of life. If you know Jack Canfield, you know this, but I just love this, right? Because the outcomes we're getting today are not working. I just showed that in the data. What's happening today is not working. So we have to use this E plus R equals O formula to help accelerate the outcomes that we want, which is that fair, inclusive, psychologically safe culture that unlocks innovation. So E is events. Things happen. Something's said in a meeting. Someone doesn't ask the same thing of a woman as they do a man. They invite the men to golf. They don't invite the women, whatever may be happening. And there's a reaction to that. And that reaction is something that you own. As events happen to you all day, you see things take place. You're part of conversations. You have opportunities to raise people up, to build this culture that we're talking about. And that is what's going to give you the outcome. So I just challenge you today, even going through your next day, when you see something and something happens to you, what kind of response can you give to give that outcome that you really want? And when we start reverse engineering it and knowing that we all want this inclusive outcome, how can we change some of our reactions? Because that's all we can control. We can't control our events. We can only control the thoughts, the actions, the feelings we have when things are happening through our reactions. So not only is that great for life to get prophetic here, but it's also going to help us in leading these cultures and knowing that feedback is a gift. We have to get feedback on where we stand so that we can have a barometer to that outcome to know what we need to change and how we need to change our reactions to give the outcome that we need. So we want to be enlightened there. So let's take full responsibility while embracing feedback. Then we need to set goals and take action. All right. We want to always align our strengths and passion and pull that from our teams. That's part of what isn't just great culture, that's great leadership, right? Pulling the best from our teams, knowing what they love to do and helping them do more of it. And we can apply that to this inclusive culture mindset. I heard a manager on a call say this week, I have a goal to really ensure we're bringing more diversity into our teams. Wow, great. So someone is stating that as a goal out loud to a wide group. Then that allows us to start to hold more accountability. So what can we do? We could set targets and share our metrics. We could say that we're going to have X number of women on the interview in the process, X number of women in the panel, underrepresented groups. You know, if we have, for example, white males, and that's the only people interviewing people and the only candidates we have in the pool, we're not being very diverse. And so we really need to challenge the system and set those goals at all levels. This isn't just the responsibility of a D&I leader. This is everyone's responsibility to make sure that we are doing what we need to do to take action. And as we heard earlier, it's taking action at all levels is key. So not just saying we're going to do things and saying it's important, but taking action on these things. Simple as doing that unconscious bias training that they offer. Although I do think that there's way more beyond that. And it comes into just looking at where the system is broken. As a technologist, I really see things in data. So I believe that if you really dig into the data, you could start to see where things are broken and make sure you're building that pipeline for those higher levels of leadership. Women that are excellent and masters at their craft and their job and understand your business and can drive those successful teams. All right, the next step is to visualize the achievements you desire. Activate the subconscious mind. Imagine a team that has that open, positive, inclusive culture vibe and focus on the positive things. One of my employees asked me this week, what can I do to help you? And I honestly didn't have much back for them other than just staying really positive and taking care of their goals that they've set because they've taken time to do them. And something as simple as that is easily missed, unfortunately. So we want to visualize this environment we talked about earlier, this a profitable environment, this innovative environment. And that could be through supportive managers, working through our challenges better, and really just getting 1% better every day and finding sponsorship to where, where's needed, sponsoring people in and up. And finding your tribe and giving back. There's a lot of power to community here, and finding people that have shared experiences is why the employee resource groups, EROs, are so valuable as well. And this type of support is really important when you layer on different things, because if we take gender alone and we peel that out, that's one piece, man and woman. But everyone has these unique experiences that layer on top of that. And as you start to build these multi-layered issues, it's harder to find people who've dealt with those and who can help you with your response, with your dealing of these things. And it's these steps that we can all take together that are the secret egg we can crack, nonetheless, to promote diversity. I'm going to give a quick story. You know, when we start opening the conversation, as we've done in 2020, about many issues like this, people are going to come to you. I had an issue during the beginning of COVID where I felt compelled to tell leadership, hey, we're doing a lot of happy hours. And it was a simple consideration. Like, I'd really like to just make sure if we could change it to trivia night, or just be sensitive to those that may be dealing with alcohol recovery, because we don't know who those people are. They don't really self identify. And I feel like this is a really tough time for people, being locked in your house for a year and dealing with the pandemic itself, that maybe we could be more sensitive. And it was feedback, right? So you're going to get things like that. So what did leadership do? They had a choice to make it a mountain or a molehill. And that's the choices you're going to make all the time. People are going to come to you and said, hey, this should have been done better in the meeting. This was an issue. And what you have to decide is what you're going to make of it. And this is really important. A lot of times, like my example of alcoholism and watching the happy hour nomenclature, that example, all I wanted them to do was say, you're right, Nicole, we can make a little twist and see where we can make those changes and be sensitive to that, right? I didn't need a policy. I didn't need an announcement. I didn't need an HR case. I didn't need a mountain here. I needed a molehill. I needed a molehill that just said, great, let's stomp it out. Let's take our new mindset to get us those new results. Because if she's feeling this way, someone else might be feeling this way. So instead, you have that in you. You don't need to take everything to HR because someone who's a woman makes a comment. You need to ask those other questions and really dive into that. All right, so let's get to the checklist. Let's get to the good stuff. I know, I'm so sorry I'm not on video. I wish I could see all of your beautiful chats. I don't see much going on here in the chat, but be ready because I am going to be open to some questions. So let's see what the best practices are to be an inclusive leader so that you walk away today knowing why it matters. The three things we talked about: culture, productivity, innovation. How to do it, how to take these steps. I hope that you gain from them as well, your personal, motivation today. But how can we be this diversity champion? One, you can promote and encourage discovery and participation in the employee resource organizations, in your group, in your community, and understand who's involved. Do you know what your company has to offer? How many? What kind of things do they offer? Are you sharing those with your team? Are you supporting those? Do you even know who's involved in your team so that you can maybe have them give updates on what's happening? You can look for different diversity events that are open to all, maybe local youth STEM events. You would be surprised if you're out there representing yourself and the amazing gifts that you have. Someone's going to see that and say, man, if they could do it, so could I. You're going to change lives when you start to do this. That's exactly why I'm speaking today on this so passionately, because I love multi-cloud and I love cloud strategies as well, and infrastructure, and I could talk about that all day. But where I really get excited is really how we can change this, because this is how we're going to get more innovation, the open design thinking and things like that, and culture. All right, so look for those events, encourage diverse hiring practices like a candidate pool review, like who's in the pool and the panels, not just who's coming to the table, who's in the panel, and how are we building that pipeline throughout the organization. Obviously, you hear this a lot in leadership. I'm going to reiterate it: mentoring and sponsorships. All right, very, very important. And above all, it's that mindset. You have to embrace the right mindset to see things with this diversity lens. I personally, for example, don't have a deep struggle with alcoholism, but you know what I did? I used a lens of someone else. I use the lens of how that would look like and how that would feel to be someone not in my shoes. Uh, that's how we get better as a planet, by the way, but also as inclusive cultures. It's all about that emotional intelligence, being informed as well about social issues that impact other cultures, and being empathetic, but most of all, being an ally, speaking up. That's exactly what I did in the example I gave. I was just an ally to those that may be having those deeper struggles, because when you speak out, you're a louder voice and you're a more powerful voice because you're speaking for them. You're speaking for other people and you're making a wave of change. So I do encourage you to be an ally as well. All right. Again, my purpose here is to spark a passion in you that can help lead to this inclusive culture, regardless of title. Every single one of you hearing this message today has a chance to make a beautiful, wonderful difference in your careers, in your cultures, in your communities. So what can we do? Here's the checklist. Take a screenshot right now, please. Save it, share it, send it to the world. This is how we're going to make a difference. Ask your HR organization what they can do. Get educated, share your resources with your team. Constantly keep that in the back of your mind. You could search for different Facebook events, meetups, Eventbrites locally. Look for keywords like diversity and inclusion. Check tech groups for opportunities. Understand how to get involved. I understand, hey, people come to me all the time and say, hey, Nicole, I don't know how to get involved with women of a VMware with the women pod. Like, I'm not a woman and I want to support it. And I want to support the culture and I don't know how. How many of you have felt that? Like, you just don't know. Like, I personally support our Black pod, but how does that look like in reality? Well, you've got to have, again, that emotional intelligence, and you can simply say, what events would be best for me to attend to support something like Connected Black Professionals? If you want to get involved and you take the first step, all you have to do is ask that organizer. It will be very clear when something is not open to everybody. But in my history, I have found most organizations are open to all people getting involved, because that's the only way we're going to have that lens of diversity when you're sitting with people who share that value. So, of course, ask. Don't be afraid, right? Like I said, you may or may not know because I'm not on video, but I am a white woman and I consider myself an advocate for African Americans, for all kinds of people, because it takes all of us to speak up for each other. Check with your hiring manager. Again, how can you influence that diverse hiring pool? If you are from say a woman, or you're from an underrepresented uh, a minority or underrepresented group, then please ask how you could be a part of those panels, because you could see something in people that other people won't, because we come from different backgrounds when you're doing interviewing. So maybe you could be a part of that process. Always keep an eye open to be a connector, provide value, share things that are happening in and outside your organization with your team, and just be the bridge to make everyone feel like they're part of the team, and know that your actions, what you do, not the unconscious bias training, not the checking the box, right? It's what you do and take action on and who you are that's going to build that culture, that's going to speak way, way, way louder than words. It's your actions. So living these values will make you a better person in the world and in the workplace, and it will make everyone feel connected and part of a team, which ultimately is going to drive that success and satisfaction that we talked about. So let's spark success together. I would love to talk to you about futurist topics as far as where VMware is going in the cloud, how we're securing workloads, creating, modern application platforms, and wonderful end user experience as we have for 20 years. But I will be happy as well to spark success together. I have a whole collection out there, Tech Diva Success. I'm all over the socials. Everything is out there. And with that, I would love questions from everyone today. And I do have just this quick references if anyone was really passionate about where I got the data. And I will now also enter in the chat where you could perhaps, well, actually, it looks like it's just organizers. So I'll figure out how to get that over to you all, where you can download the chapter of my book that is for free, and you can read the in-depth study on all of this. So back over to you, Jose, and I just appreciate this opportunity to speak about something that is the underlying driver for everything we're trying to accomplish today as we talk about the other innovations within the agenda. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, Nicole. Fantastic. Because you're not on camera, I'm going to ask you to keep sharing your presentation, and go ahead and put on the first page that you had there, because you have a bit of an avatar or a pictorial there of yourself. So I think that would be a great background for the audience to have. It's whoever did that artwork, I think they did a really good job, by the way. It looks very, very
Fiverr.
nice.
It's all about smart outsourcing.
So listen, I don't see right now. So if you can show your screen, if you can launch it again, and then click show screen so that the audience can see that. Perfect, right there.
Great.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
So Nicole, I don't think you can see the same things that I can see in terms of the chat and the conversation that's going on in the background. So I'm just going to relay to you some of the things that have been discussed. And let's start with one of the themes that has emerged has to do with how do you get women to be more interested and engaged in tech? What are some of the suggestions that you have for that? Because as you know very well, it's still heavily dominated by males, and curious about your perspectives on how we can make STEM really more relevant and more interesting to women.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. It starts young. It starts with the toys that we put in front of them when they're very young. I have two aspiring tech divas myself in my life. And it comes down to explaining things that oftentimes we reserve for little boys, explaining how things work, the science of things, picking toys that are not always dolls, or like in my house, have Barbie troubleshoot the internet going down because they can't get to YouTube. So it starts there. We also see, and I'm going to kind of go through a few phases very quickly. Between 6th and 8th grade, women in STEM fields, right? Science, technology, engineering, math, they start to get more shy about asking questions. I believe it has to do somewhat with, more consciousness about how they appear in front of their male peers, how they look, more, the cultural, boyfriend, girlfriend part of society, right? So isolating women at that age between 6th to 8th grade, I've seen a lot of successful tutoring programs that bring young girls in that age out so that they can thrive in the fundamental STEM fields that are needed to bring more women into tech. And then as you get into high school and college, you would be surprised if you're out here and you're working in the field of technology, which I hope many of you are on this call. Tell your neighbors, tell your nieces what you do. If you're updating a report, a website, you're doing something cool that might be remotely interesting, share it with them, because in many cases it's a neighbor, a friend, someone who shares with them an event that could change someone's life. I'm telling you, I have changed lives with events that have like 2 people at it. It takes one person at a time. So a lot of times people are influenced, hey, you should go be a doctor. There's going to be a lot of need for medical. Well, be the one who says, hey, we need engineers, and you can take something you're passionate about. And this is the final thing, is to tell young women that whatever you're passionate about, if you're passionate about fashion, guess what? BCBG needs a website, and they need the designs to have a great user experience so people can order that designer shirt. So let them know that whatever they're passionate about, they can find a career that has to do with that in technology. But I guarantee you, you cannot find a career that doesn't have to do with technology in some way, shape, or form in today's age. So I hope that was a TLDR version of that answer, but I think it starts young and it goes into all ages. And that's why mentoring and sponsorship was called out as an action to take to continue to encourage women once you're in the career space so that we can get those numbers up. Thank you.
I love that, Nicole. Those are great insights. Starting early, there's a lot of research that says that even from an academic perspective, you have hit the kids in elementary, middle school age to start having those insights and interests that you just mentioned. Some of the questions really from the audience have to do with interested in your own journey. How did Nicole turn out to be a tech diva. I mean, what made you go into this direction as a young lady, and what were the influences that you had?
I love this because I have such a fun story. I don't know how many of you out there are music lovers. I love music. And I was going to go into education. And when I went to college, way back in the day, and I quickly learned about the opportunities of the financial benefits of being in a technology career. That is another great way to talk to women about being in technology, because if they want nice things and they want money, then they could get into technology and make that money. But I was into music. I was in the, scene, going out, listening to live music in Texas, in University of North Texas, actually, in Denton. It's a great music school. And I was seeing a lot of male DJs. And I saw them and I thought, you know what? I can do this. Like, I saw what they were doing, and I actually just jumped right in, self-taught myself, got my own turntables. My vinyl record collection was built up, and I started playing gigs. And when you're connecting the ones and twos and you're networking that, you have to have the same types of things that we need in a network, right? You have to have sound, and it needs to sound good, and it needs to be continuous. And guess what? That's like internet. We got to have our connection. We got to have our WAN link up. And I guess I just learned a lot of fundamentals there, that one, you could do anything you put your mind to and be successful in a male dominated field. And two, my passion for technology, my confidence, and my ability to make it in a male dominated field was there. So it was actually DJing that got me into the industry. And now during the pandemic, I set a little goal, and now I do stream, and I'm back in the music scene, streaming on Twitch, just playing music and kind of having some fun. So it just shows you that you can really take anything and it can lead you to a fruitful career in technology just by having the confidence, which is another huge, huge thing for women to be successful in tech, is to build their confidence, let them know what they're doing right, but still make sure they're able to take that feedback. Thanks for the question.
That's awesome. That's what a great experience, and the story there on that, on how things in our environment shape, some of the choices that we make and the interests that we develop. That's a great example of that. I have a bit of a commentary and then a follow-up question on that with you. I have for nearly 3 decades, we have accelerated excellence and innovation for value creation with great enduring organizations, more than 100 cross-industry organizations all over the world. And what we have observed, which has been quite interesting, is that, and I must say right off the bat, Nicole, our goal was never to really emphasize diversity and inclusion. It was never to really aim for equality of outcomes at any level. It wasn't that at all. We're looking to accelerate excellence and innovation for value creation. And the mechanism for doing that we saw that worked really well, was to create a meritocracy of ideas with very clear execution mechanisms for innovation, for value creation in an organization. So that was kind of the operational mode, if you will. And what we have seen is that in these organizations that we work with, honestly, a lot of heavy on energy, technology, manufacturing, which were like on average 80% males, 20% females in the groups, in the original groups. What we have seen is that when there is a meritocracy of ideas in the organization with clear execution mechanisms, an emphasis on collaborative leadership and innovation execution, what we see is that when these systems exist, nearly 50% of all successful innovations for value creation were led by women. And we were perplexed by the data, because it's like you get from a population that's 80-20, and now you have nearly a 50-50 in terms of successful innovation implementation. And we're perplexed by that outcome, because we never aimed for that. But we got that when we had meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms. I'm curious about what your hypothesis would be on why something like this happened when we have clear execution mechanisms for innovation, meritocracy of ideas, and a bit of an emphasis on collaborative leadership. why do women do disproportionately better in those settings? I'm curious about what your thoughts would be on that.
Oh, I love this. And you're absolutely right. And I think that what we call it, I mean, it's just free thought respect, right? And the systems that you just spoke about are absolutely part of it, right? I may call it design thinking, right? Where I'm using these open platforms. I think it's because we see the results because women have a voice, and like you can take different considerations and kind of put all your cards on the table. That's how I see it. Everyone's putting their cards on the table, and it's not necessarily easy to dictate whose cards are what, right? And what happens is when you have a group of people who are like, they're going to come up with a lot of the same cards. So maybe the innovation 50-50 comes from the fact that the woman card is different. And as they say, that if isn't it going insane is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results? So a lot of times when we look at innovation, we have to do things differently, approach things differently to get a different outcome, to accelerate digital, innovation and things like that. So I think what it comes down to is having that place where everyone can be heard and things can be taken, the best ideas can be discussed and built on, because it's not necessarily always the woman's idea. It's the seed that's planted to think about things differently in ways that you would have never solved problems before. And then everyone builds on it. So I think that that's the beauty of it, is that it really becomes everyone's idea. Everyone feels heard, everyone feels respected. And the outcomes that you get is the ability to collaborate on what's best for that challenge. What's the best outcome that you can get with what you're dealing with. So that's why I think it's so important in technology to use these methods to follow things like excellence and innovation, best practices that you have, because even the things I talk about today, we can link those to business improvement. Um, but without them, we really aren't going to get as far in a one-track mind organization. So that's some of the thought that I had behind that. Did that make sense?
I think you absolutely nail it. And I'll say there was an energy leader, a male energy leader, who at one point came to me and says, well, Jose, you have, in this culture transformation that we have been going through to accelerate innovation organization, you have really emphasized that the essence of innovation is the ability to take a different perspective at a problem. And then he followed up by saying, and honestly, we have diversity and inclusion works really well with that, because now you're bringing these women into an energy field specifically in that context that had been designed and developed with mostly men thinking about how to do things for decades. And then
Yes.
these women were bringing that essence of new perspectives, and those new perspectives were creating value in that context. So you absolutely nailed that.
Yeah, I mean that's really why I do this work. Like I'm a technologist. I love the geeky things. I love the progress, but we can't do it without diversity. So I love connecting innovation to diversity 100%. In fact, that's the premise of my book.
That is fantastic. Nicole, we could talk about this for hours. I personally believe that this decade that's coming upon us will be the decade of women in leadership, and for the reasons that you have mentioned. And by the way, I think we all going to benefit society, men and women, and all of us will benefit from this great inclusion, from these new perspectives coming to these fields, and that will allow value to be created for everyone. So I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. Hope to get you back on a future event as well with your camera on and have all the energy visualized as well. But thank you so much for sharing your expertise with nearly 2,000 of our global participants today.
Yes, I invite them all to come on and visit me on YouTube, Tech Diva Success. You can see my pretty shiny, smiley face there, advocating for many, many of these things. Thank you for the opportunity. And again, take action, people. Be an ally, and don't just check the box. Whatever you do, go above and beyond. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Nicole Scheffler, tech diva and enterprise engineering leader for VMware, sharing her journey of diversity and inclusion, and the great impact of women leadership in our fields for years to come. So we are going to wrap this session up now. Again, go ahead, connect with us on LinkedIn, post, comment, share, ask additional questions that you haven't had a chance to pose in this today, and get ready for our final session that's gonna come at the top of the hour. And we're gonna be welcoming Jairo Gomez. Jairo Gomez is the senior leader for infrastructure and technology for a very, very interesting organization. He is a senior leader again for the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, ACAMS. So come back at the top of the hour and hear the journey of these specialists in this association related to infrastructure and technology with Jairo Gomez. So I'll see you back at the top of the hour.